Guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and check out the video. Always very grateful for that. Guys, today we're going to be talking about the best times of day to fish. As far as the specific time of day, there is a lot of misconceptions surrounding this, and I think it's really important to know the best time of day to get out there based upon a lot of different conditions, because that really maximizes your opportunity to catch a lot of fish and some bigger fish. So we're going to go over that in today's video. Also, guys, big thank you out there to everybody that's been helping support the channel through all the links, like my Tackle Warehouse links in the description, and subscribing to the channel. Also, just wanted to make an invitation. Anyone interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by going to my Facebook page, Randy Blockett Professional Angler, and shoot me a private message. So thanks a lot for the channel support there, guys. Okay, guys, one of the biggest myths, first of all, I'm going to break a huge myth in bass fishing in general, is that people say there's like this tradition in bass fishing that you got to get up before daylight and get out there at the crack of dawn to start fishing. Guys, that is the biggest myth that you ever seen. Don't feel like you've got to roll out of bed in the middle of the night to go fishing, because you don't. What you have to do, though, is you have to determine the best time of day based upon a lot of different conditions. And those conditions, to me, have a lot to do with the season that you're fishing, has a lot to do with the water clarity and the water temperature as far as the specific best time of day to fish. So what I want to do is I want to run through each season, winter, spring, summer, fall, and I want to give you guys what has been, in my experience, the best time of day to be out there, and that sort of give you some framework or foundation to lay with that there. Okay, wintertime, talk about that a little bit. Wintertime, in most lakes across the country, you're dealing with a couple different factors. A lot of times the water's a little bit lower than normal. A lot of times in the wintertime, the water's a little bit clearer than normal. And obviously it's at its coldest point during the wintertime of the year. What you're gonna find is the colder the water, when those water temperatures are between 40 to 50 degrees, usually that's somewhere between November to March or something like that, the best time of day is going to be up in the middle part of the day when the sun is the highest. So I do a lot of, on the water lessons, guys, in the wintertime, almost without exception, right off the bat in the morning, it's pretty tough. And around probably about between 11 to 2 o'clock in the day is when you catch your most fish. And I think a lot of that has to do with the sunlight. Again, it's its highest level. You got the maximum amount of light penetration, and the combination of the cold water and the light penetration in the little bit cleaner water, it just makes the fish bite better. It has been in my experience there. Now, moving on into the spring, when that water temperature starts to warm up, specifically above 60 degrees, well, let's say, upper 50s to maybe around 70 degrees, which you're talking about sometime in March up into May, during that time frame there. A lot of this has to do, again, with the light intensity, specifically the amount of cloud cover that you have. Once your water temperatures start getting up, pushing that 60-degree mark, it's going to, those fish are going to start getting active a little bit earlier, but not super early. So in springtime of year, my favorite time of year is to get out there probably about around 10 o'clock, around 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock or something like that. There's something about the angle of the sun that time of year, the way it penetrates the water, the way it affects the way the lures look in the water in relationship to the light intensity and the water clarity. Sort of that, a little bit after 10 o'clock is going to be your best time frame there. I'm not saying you can't catch them at any time during the day, but that's sort of the best time. Another factor in the springtime of the year that helps you out as far as time of day is the brighter it is out there, the more that you can see the fish. And I don't necessarily mean seeing fish on beds, but in the springtime of the year, when that water temperature starts to get around 60 degrees, you have a lot of fish cruising if you've got water clarity clear enough to see it. So if you've got water visibility of like 3.5 or 4 feet, once that water temperature starts to hit the upper 50s, around 60 degrees, and even up into the 70s, you can see a lot of bass roaming the shallows. You can see them just swimming. They're either in the process of making beds, looking for beds, garden fry, moving out of there. A lot of different movement going on in shallow water. And you can really visually pick those fish off. One of my favorite ways to catch them, guys, is I really love to fish for cruising bass. These aren't bedding bass. These are bass that are just swimming down the bank cruising. And if you got the right light intensity, which is normally up in the day a little bit more, you can lead those cruising bass a little bit and cast in front of them and see them, but you can't really do that early or late in the day with that. Now, there's one exception to that during the springtime of the year. If you've got some pretty clear water and water temperatures in the upper 50s, a lot of times earlier in the morning is better if you're throwing really big baits, because one of my favorite things to do in the springtime like that is to throw like a big swim bait or a glide bait or a big spinner bait. And a lot of times you need a little bit lower light intensity for those baits to work really good, especially the spinner bait with that. And let me talk a little bit about water clarity before we get into the summer and the fall. It's pretty obvious that the dirtier the water that you have in the lake, and when I'm talking about dirty water or stained water, I'm usually talking about water visibility that's less than 3 feet. If you do have that dirtier water, and it's even more important if it's down to around 12 inches of visibility, muddy water, it's always better up in the day. 12 months out of the year, you're always going to catch more fish when it's a little bit, brighter, the sun's up a little bit higher. It throws shade lines off, fish will position in that shade based upon the water clarity. And it normally always works better in a situation like that. Okay, summertime. Now, summertime, it opens up several different windows here, again, based upon your water clarity on your lake. Summertime is one time of year where certain situations, the fish do bite better earlier or late in the day, but that window is really small. So let's say, for example, you're out there in July and you always hear, we got to get out there to get that early morning topwater bite, which is the most overrated bite in the world because the window is so small. If you're fishing in the summertime of the year, and if you've got any lake that has, over 2 foot of visibility where there is some type of a topwater bite or swim jig or something like that, Xerospook, buzzbait, whatever, yeah, there's going to be a window. Your best time to take advantage of that topwater bite is going to be in those low light times of day. But that window is super, super small, because what happens in July, if you get out there at the crack of dawn and you've got a sunny day on the way, those fish have been up on the bank feeding all night long. And as soon as that sun pops out, those fish are going to start moving deeper, moving off the bank. A lot of times, not everywhere in the lake, but a lot of times they're going to be moving deeper. So you've got this real small window of time, and you're actually catching it on the tail end of the feed there. So I've never put much stock in getting out there real early, even in the summertime, because that window is so small. The only exception to this is going to be ponds. Ponds are an exception because they're always going to be a little bit better early in the day out there for whatever reason. But for lakes, you've got a real small window of time. It also normally in the summertime of year, a lot of the fish that I catch on topwater shallow in the summertime are smaller fish. For me, the best time to fish during the day in the summertime is again in the middle of the day. I don't care if it's 100 degrees out there. If I'm fishing in the summertime, I always do better between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the day out there. Now there's a couple different reasons, because you got 2 different ways to fish. You can fish deeper. Say, for example, if you're fishing deeper points, deeper brush piles, I usually always catch them better up during the day like that. And then if you're fishing shallow, the middle of the day is always better because it throws off more shade against targets. So if you're flipping docks or flipping laydowns or flipping trees or whatever, you've got a specific shade line that's created by that sun being overhead like that. And those fish will get in those tight little shade pockets, which is one of my favorite ways to catch them there. So again, summer is a little bit, you can catch them early, but again, I prefer it up during the daytime of year. Now in the fall time of the year, fall is one time of year where I have really never noticed one time of the day being more productive than the other. Now fall is, again, you've got 3 different seasons within fall. You got early fall, mid fall, and late fall. And during that period of the transition where that water temperature goes from like, say, 80 degrees or so when it's warm down into the 50s like that, especially when it gets down closer to 70 degrees, guys, you're apt to catch them early, middle of the day, late in the day. It's like there's a lot of different fish doing a lot of different things. There's a lot of movement going on. So during the fall time of the year, that's one time that I have not been able to locate a specific time of day that is more productive than the other. Now, a lot of this has to do with your techniques too. Everything I talked about here for the 4 seasons, Certain techniques are simply going to be better under different type of day, the light intensity when you're talking about the time of day. If you're fishing the bigger moving baits like a spinner bait, a topwater, something like that, yeah, you're obviously going to do better under your low light conditions. And if you're flipping or pitching or cranking a deep crank or something like that, or some technique that the light is not that important of a factor, then maybe up in the day is going to be a little bit better. But the main thing, guys, the one thing I want to reiterate as far as the best time of day is if you're one of those people that say you got to get out early in the morning to get out there, you don't have to do that, guys. I bet probably, I bet in tournaments over the past 40 years, and I've fished hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tournaments, I bet probably less than 15 or 20% of the fish that I have weighed in tournaments have came like before 9 o'clock in the morning. I catch 85% of my fish up in the day for the most part. I just think that's the best time of day to fish them, because up in the day, you're not necessarily catching those fish because they're hungry, but you can catch them more from other qualities that generate strikes, like reaction strikes, curiosity, competition, anger. There's other variables that cause bass to bite a lure other than just being hungry at feeding, because the best time of day to fish, period, any time, is at night, which we don't do much. In my opinion, I think that most bass feed actively at night all year long, not just during the winter time. I really think bass are primarily nocturnal feeders. So if you really want to know the best time of day to fish, it is at night. You're going to catch bigger fish and you're going to catch more fish anywhere you go. But anyway, that's just an overview, guys. There's a lot of exceptions to the rule, because every lake that you fish has different type of cover, different type of water clarity, different type of wind. Wind also determines the best time of day to fish. Time of the year, the angle of the bank. Some lakes have big mountain sides on them that throw off a bunch of shade. Some lakes are flatter, you don't have that shade. So every situation is different, but that's just sort of an overview from my point of view and experience. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later.